Welcome to the Pacey Performance Podcast. Today, I'm speaking with strength and conditioning coach and owner of the training lab, Iron Mac McKenzie. Hi guys, thanks for tuning into the Pacey Performance Podcast. Today I've got Andy McKenzie on the line. I wanted to get Andy on because I read his blog when he puts it up, I watch his videos, and I think he's putting some really great stuff out. He's actually invited me onto his core training workshop at the back end of November. So I'll be doing a little review for him and stick it on the podcast just to let everyone know what it's about and how I get on. In this episode of the podcast, Andy talks about his facility, the training lab, and how open your own facility can be a viable option for people currently in strength and conditioning, whether it's in elite sport or with the general population. He also speaks about his, like I've said, his core training workshop and his philosophies on bodyweight training and core stability training. We also delve a little bit deeper into an article that he wrote a little bit ago into gadgets and gizmos, and I get Andy's opinion on the best gadgets out there that can provide good value for money. We also discuss a little meeting Andy had with Eric Cressy and what he learned from him over in Slovenia when he took a trip across there last year. But before we get on to the chat with Andy, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to the guys that have been in touch, offering their feedback on the podcast. If you want to keep in touch with everything that's going on the podcast, you can follow me on Twitter at PaceyPerform, or you can jump over to paceyperformance.co.uk where you can catch up with all previous episodes of the podcast. If you're feeling generous, jump over to iTunes and give us a rating and a review. That'd be greatly appreciated. And if you are liking what you hear in the podcast, feel free to give us a shout out on Twitter or on Facebook. Again, spread the love. But before I go anymore, here is the chat with Andy McKenzie. Welcome to the Pacey Performance Podcast. Got a guy, Andy McKenzie, on the line who I've wanted to get on for a number of months now and just been struggling back and forth to line up diaries, but now we get it sorted. Just like to welcome Andy to the podcast and get him to just explain a little about his background, his education, and what he's currently doing. So welcome, Andy.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for having me on, mate. Right, I'll try and keep this as brief as possible because I'm feeling old and crusty now. Essentially, my background in sort of education has been from the military. I joined the army when I was 16, and then from there I sort of transferred into the Army Physical Training Corps and spent sort of the last 4 years of my service doing all the gym type stuff. And then from there, sort of the education process is I've only got like a cert ed in sports science. I've done an FA diploma in the treatment and management of sports injuries. At the time I went and completed the accreditation for the UKSA, but I'm no longer sort of a member of that, and I can speak about that later and tell you the reasons why. Whilst I was in the army, then I did spent a lot of time at the Headley Court, and then I ran the biggest sort of like rehab centre at ATR Bodyweight, which was a fantastic experience. I was also a trainer, a PTI with pre-parachute selection and also at basic training. So I've worked with quite a lot of different areas of fitness or fitness requirements, so to speak. I then left the army after 16 years, moved down to Wales and worked with the Celtic Crusaders as an S&C with the academy. And then from there, when they moved up north, I decided that I wanted to open up my own gym, and that's where I am at the moment. So essentially, I'm first and foremost, I consider myself a strength conditioning coach. Secondly, I'm the owner of the training lab, which is my gym here down in East Grinstead. I'm also the head of S&C for East Grinstead Rugby as well. I do education for trainers now, and I also sell T-shirts, I Am Disciple clothing. which makes me sound like a fitness entrepreneur. And if I'm coming across like that, then fuck, I don't really want to sort of be known as that. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I might have missed some stuff out because I've got a real sort of like a mixed bag of experience that I sort of like to bring to the table, which I think is quite important as well, mate.
No, that's cool. I mean, I want to have a little bit of discussion on your business side of things, but you mentioned it. Just go into a bit of why you're not a member of the UKSA anymore.
Right. When I was transitioning from the military, and I was thinking, right, I don't have a degree like everybody else, and I want to work in professional sport. And I thought, well, I looked at the UKSA, and I thought, well, that looks like the way to go, because they seem to have like a hold on in terms of professional sport. But the other one, and the biggest one that I think is super important, I did it because I wanted to become a better coach, and I thought they had a fantastic step-by-step process in order for me to do that, and it was great exposure. And I worked with a mentor as well, Jeremy Moody, and one of the biggest things I said to Jeremy was, I don't want to come here to learn how to pass an accreditation. I just want to become a really good strength coach, well-rounded, so that when I stand in front of my peers, I'll be able to pass on merit and go anywhere, because I'm experienced rather than just learning things sort of like parrot fashion. My reason for not continuing was because after like 2-3 years of having it, I was just I felt like I was paying money to have letters after my name. But the association wasn't really doing anything for guys sort of that had been through the accreditation. I didn't think the CPD, or they weren't delivering any at the time, was good enough. And then it was just like a small discount when you come to the conference and stuff like that. So I mean, from there then, Rob, I took the decision, thought, do you know what, I'm not working in professional sport, and I don't really want to just keep paying to have 4 letters after my name, and that's why I stopped. The having the letters after my name, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, you might have heard when you said you listened to a few of the episodes. Darren Roberts had quite a interesting view on it as well, which is quite similar. That was a couple of episodes ago. So yeah, but I mean, we'll move on. I just want to get into a bit of detail about the gym itself and the business side of things. Mm-hmm. I know a couple of guys that have gone down the route of opening up their own business, some more successful than others, but is it a viable thing for S&C coaches? Obviously, it seems though everyone including myself, wants to get into elite sport and work for a professional rugby, football, whatever club. But is it a viable option for guys to kind of open their own facility?
Right. It depends in terms of which where you're coming from. So, for example, if you're coming out of professional sport, and then going to open up your own gym, then that's really, you've got to look at some certain factors. If you're coming from, let's say, for example, straight from university, and maybe done a couple of interns and think open up your own gym is an option, then they both bring 2 different areas that you have to look at. Is it a viable option? Yes, I think it is, as long as you do it with maybe 1 or 2 other coaches that can actually give you a hand with the hours of the gym and stuff like that. Because whether you like it or not, it soon sort of becomes a bit of a buggerance when you're there near enough 24/7, especially when you open it up on your own and you're trying to drive the business as well as sort of like train people inside it. So yeah, Rob, it is viable, and it's hard, and it can be done, but equally you've got to look at it in terms of where you're coming from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So did you have a couple of guys that helped you when you first started out?
I first started. I first opened up with a nutrition guy called Ben Kuma, and then we parted ways because we just found that we wanted sort of like different things. So, which was perfectly fine. And now I've got another trainer who just helps me run in the hours that I can't be there, which is needed. But essentially, I was opening. I ran it for like sort of two and a bit years on my own, which nearly broke me. When I look back, I think, Jesus, how did I actually manage all that? But somehow you actually do, because you've got a bit of a focus. So yeah, it's quite tough that way, mate.
Oh, cool. I know you mentioned your education, seminars, workshops. You do one on core training, which seems obviously a big part of what you do and what you kind of put out there. But can you give us a bit of a background on why you focus on that area and your philosophies on core training as well?
Right. One of my probably biggest reasons why I focus on core is that I fractured my spine going back maybe about 10 plus years ago, and I fractured T4, 6 and 8 cross fractures, C7. At the time, I completely smashed L5, S1, so I had a disc prolapse. And then later on down the line, I had a disc protrusion as well, so it literally sort of went all squishy and popped out, and I couldn't feel my bottom half. And then I've also dislocated my SI joint on a pretty big lift, and with various other injuries. So my body's been a bit of a car crash, but do you know what? Sometimes that's just the life that it leads. So I've been through a lot of physio treatment from other therapists and things like that. And I just found that what I was getting taught wasn't really working for my body at the time. And one of the biggest problems I had, so I ended up sort of like living with genuine 4 out of 10 pain for the last sort of like 12 years, which, if you can imagine living with toothache every day, it starts to become uncomfortable and saps your energy. So I started really researching a lot more. I really enjoy the stuff from McGill and other guys from a core perspective. But then I really started doing my own stuff. I really wanted to search out what works for my body, because a lot of the stuff I was getting taught was like really keep a stable spine, and I was really afraid to actually to generally move and bend. And then I thought, this isn't right. I mean, I can't like keep on living like this. I need to do something different. So I then started looking into a little bit more about breathing drills, and then really mobilizing every aspect of the spine. And then when I had both of them, when I started doing both of them, I gradually became more and more pain-free. And I thought, well, this is really interesting. And as I become more pain-free and started moving my spine a lot more, that pain went. And then from there, I started building exercise on top of it, and invariably, I moved a hell of a lot better. So from that perspective, I then started doing that with a lot of other clients, especially with lower back pain. And then I brought up the experience because I had a lot of back patients when I was back at Bodyweight, which was going back a few years ago now, and just bringing in all the experience from there, and then my own personal experience and come up with it now. That's the sort of that's why I think I'm really passionate about with working the core and getting that right. But also when I hear people saying that that if you squat big, if you pull big deadlifts, and if you do cleans, then you'll get core work. And quite honestly, I think that's complete bullshit, because one of the things that I find is when a lift breaks down, in terms of from how you want to look and throughout the kinematic chain, it's normally one or two things. It's normally the grip or the core that gives way. And then so you have to program, you have to factor for it. It has to become an accessory to the main lifts. And then it then has to become an appropriate core exercise that's actually going to augment not only the performance of the lift, but equally what you're going to do outside of the gym. So for example, how's it going to translate into, say, for example, rugby, and whether you're a winger or a prop, or if you're a CrossFitter, or if you're just somebody who sits in the office all day. So each of them's got an appropriate sort of like a modality of treatment that you should actually take on board when you're going to do that. Sorry, mate, I know that was a bit long-winded, but
that's fine. That's no worries. So just to round that up, is that no? Is that so the main focus of the core training workshop is, yeah, go.
All right. So the main focus of the core workshop is you, and I believe in one. You clean the. So I've got drills called cleaning the spine, which is basically focusing on mobility aspects of for the spine itself, learning to breathe, and then how to assess it properly, and then from there how to program for certain sports. Nice. So that's the sort of like what happens on the core workshop.
Cool. I know you do a bodyweight workshop as well.
Yeah. And Rob, you'll see that because you're coming down, aren't you? You're going to come down on the 23rd.
23rd, mate. I'll be there.
So you make sure. I'll tell you what though. Do you know what catches a lot of people out is a lot of people come on my workshops thinking that you're just going to be looking at PowerPoint slides, and it's not. It's literally moving from start to finish. Because one of the things that you have to, I think, because we were speaking like before, is you have to sort of like spot. It's the little things of knowing where to start, and you know what I mean. Anybody can sort of like follow a sequence of like 1, 2, 3, but it's what happens if nobody can get one. And normally in a seminar, someone always is the person who can't move right, and that's where it's perfect, where you can get in and start coaching and start cueing properly and looking at the little things that are going to go wrong. And that's the whole premise of the workshop as well, is getting in there from a coaching perspective, and then like with your education, because everybody's got like a certain background, it's knowing how to apply that as well. Because you're moving for like 6-7 hours, people get quite tired at the end of the day. So just make sure you're ready, mate.
I'm going to be that guy, Anna.
You're going to be the movement nightmare. I've had a few where they're just like, fuck, I'm going to have to spend like more time than I actually thought. And you're like, oh, but do you know what? It's actually really good because you get to see like sometimes how a very, very simple movement, if someone hasn't even got that pattern, that motor pattern, how challenging it can actually become, because therefore like you've got to be really clever with your language and even like your movement and sort of like your, even what I call it, just patient handling skills from my rehab days. So it's actually quite nice when you get that movement cluster. But if you are, mate, I'm going to give you such a hard time.
So yeah, I've seen on your Instagram who from people who have been on it before, and I think it was the Monday or the Tuesday, or possibly even the Wednesday after the Sunday session, saying they're still in bits. So, yeah, I think the long drive back up north will be an absolute delight.
Nice, mate.
But, yeah, I just want to move on to the bodyweight training seminars and workshops that you do. I know we discussed before that kind of bodyweight methods, people are seeing it more of as a method in itself rather than a regression, as we discussed before. Do you want to talk about your philosophies on bodyweight training?
I think it's one of my philosophy is it's one of the first things that everybody should learn. And I think when you get bodyweight done correctly, then it is a form of strength training. And for me, I think it's always important because once you get it right, you'll have a way to train that you can do throughout your whole entire life. So from when you first start out, maybe it was 12, 13, all the way up to sort of 70, 80, like years old. So I think it's quite important. It's interesting where you see like it's almost become like a training method in its own right. I think that's the side of like where the industry comes in. I mean, calisthenics, you've got guys who just live and breathe calisthenics, and for me that's absolutely fine. But for me, it's a training tool that's actually really effective when you know the best way to implement it into a program. So I mean, I always I use it as a starter for when I'm coaching clients, and they have to get like certain movement patterns before they move on to resistance exercises that mimic the movements I've already learned. So yeah, I know where you're coming from in terms it's very easy to get sucked into like the beauty of it and things like that, but I have to use it in terms of for sport and any everyday clients, and so I have to jump between two.
So you just want to give us a bit of detail on the on the bodyweight training seminar and workshop itself? Kind of run through and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's 2 days, which sometimes I don't feel that it's enough because I've got quite a lot to sort of like talk about on the subject itself. And again, it's so the important factors is it comes down to first and foremost assessment. Where is somebody genuinely at in their training? Because you've got to, I mean, how do you generally know where you're going to program from if you don't know where they're at? So assessment is critical. And then the other one, the throughout the course, it's for me then the premise is always move with a purpose to improve. So from your assessment, it gives you like what you're going to mobilize on. So what your movement prep is going to contain, because a lot of people just go through movement prep willy-nilly, but there's no real sort of like specifics to it. There's no real purpose to it. So like a very, very simple 6-point assessment method gives you all the information you actually need to do when you're putting together your movement prep. So in an ideal world, between 4 and 6 weeks, maybe a wee bit longer, depending on the actual sort of dysfunction of a certain joint, you should have actually made someone move a lot better for their full range of full range of the joints. And then from there, it's literally having progressions and regressions for pretty much every pushing exercise that you can think of, every pull, and then squat variants from squatting all the way through to pistols. And then I also cover levers as well. And again, pretty much like the core, the biggest one is get in there and actually coaching it, because I see a lot of people doing a lot of things wrong all the time, and even like coaching cues which are not working. So, I mean that's the sort of the meat of the course over the 2 days.
No, it sounds cool. Just in the back of that, a couple of articles that I'd read of yours about gadgets and gizmos. Previous podcast with Carl Vale from the US absolutely made me feel like a small school child with this kind of stuff that he was going into with regards to gadgets and gizmos. But what are your kind of go-to little gadgets that actually provide something worth providing with regards to performance?
Right. I think you've got to be pretty careful about what you buy and how you utilize it in your gym. Now, for example, I mean, if we go back to this, I think earlier on, Rob, when you were saying about the business side of things, is it viable for a strength coach to open up their own gym? So there's two sort of like, I want to cover that before I talk about some of the equipment, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I think it's really important because, and this is where a lot of guys tend to fuck up a wee bit. And people that come from a professional aspect, you can't spend the time that you spend over the facts and figures and all the data when you're running a gym outside of a professional environment. And then equally, the younger guys coming in, you can't run a gym that's sort of outside the wire of the professional spectrum, so to speak, like a gym like that. And it's really, really important because you're going to end up getting stuck in this stuff that's not giving you money, it's not earning you money, and you have to take that on the chin. Does that make sense? Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Because I think, I mean, we spoke about this before, but like you've really got to understand that a lot of people like copy the models that they've got in the US and try and bring them to the UK. And you've got to look at it. Our lifestyle, even the way we train and all the other little factors are different. You've got to look at how do people function in the UK and what do they want? I mean, because we are completely different, and we've got a completely different way of life. So you have to do it from a UK perspective.
I mean, just something that's come to me. We discussed it last time about the kind of model of the gym itself. Attracting athletes and attracting general public. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of, and me included, thinking about, it'd be great to have a gym because you could get all these, footballers, rugby players, basketball players, Is it actually like that? Because I'm guessing it's probably not.
Nah. Because you've got to think of right. If you look at like, say for example, one of the biggest ones is DeFranco. Now DeFranco gets his collegiates in the NFL, which there is like there is an insane amount of money that those kids will get if they actually make it. So it's probably like in their best interest to give it 100%. And so therefore the model over there is going to be different because the athletes in terms of how they progress is different to the way an athlete progresses in the UK. I mean, so a professional athlete will be in the English Institute of Sport, so he's got no real need to come out to a gym like mine, for example. The other guys who are not professional, then they just haven't got the money that you think they've got or that you think you'll need. So therefore, like if you try and copy a business model from the US into the UK, you're going to come unstuck because athletes are not going to be knocking down at your door. It's going to be the person who wants to lose a bit of weight, the person who wants fat loss. And you've got to, so that should be like 80-90% of your business. And then the other 10%, unfortunately, it will be athletes, but it's not as big as you think it is.
I mean, someone that has got, from what I'm led to believe, a fantastic facility over there, Eric Cressy. You met him somewhere in Europe. I can't remember the exact place. Slovenia? Is it Slovenia?
Yeah.
Do you want to just give us a bit of an overview of kind of what? Go on, mate.
The gadgets and gizmos that I use, mate.
Go.
I went off on a tangent there again.
It's fine, mate. It's fine.
It's that Friday afternoon, sort of like brains going everywhere. So if we keep on from that. So this is what you've got to keep in mind, I think, when you're buying a gadget or a gizmo. So, for example, if you're in a professional setup where that you know that you've got an income coming in and it is your job to eke out the last 1%, then there is 101 things that your facility is going to have, and that's absolutely fine. And you can spend all day with that data. For example, a gym like myself, I need something that gives me feedback quick and that I can use, and then I almost forget about. And I still struggle with it because I like the facts and figures. I like looking at the data, but I've got to remember sometimes it's not really earning me money. So the only two things that I've got at the moment, mate, is I use UberSense, which is similar to Coach's Eye, which just captures video, and I use it. I think that's fantastic for feedback. And also I use that with my online clients as well, which is really important because we can have a real open dialogue and I can look at the movement quite in depth over and over again, rather than just sort of like seeing it once. So that's really cheap, and you don't tend to stay on it all day. And then the last one, I've got the Gym Aware, which is a great tool. Again, I don't use it till its full sort of capacity because I don't have the time. I use it for testing athletes, and then sometimes I'll bring it out and I'll use it in the gym when I want to raise a little bit of competition and stuff like that as well, because you get that immediate feedback. But other than that, Rob, is like I have to sort of get the data in and then get on with other aspects of my business that I really need to work on. So they are the only two things that I use. But you, as a young coach, do you actually need the Gym Aware? No, you don't, mate. There's other cheaper ways you can actually measure power and stuff like that, and that doesn't sort of get you sucked into thinking you're way above your means in terms of who you're training and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's easy to get sucked into these things when you're a professional club. We need this. But when it's actually a case of, I need that, or, something more important, like a fucking family holiday, you know what I mean? Or, basically putting food on the table, I know which one I'm going to go for.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. And that's quite key, mate, especially when you open up a gym. You're going to open up a gym, it is literally running on a minimum of what you can get away with, how you can train people. And then throughout the year, 2, 3, 4, even if you survive that long, and then you start adding equipment. And then when you've got enough time and you've got a good income from like different income sources, then you can go and buy a Gym Aware and you can play around with it. But until then, it's minimum for maximum. And unfortunately, you get far too much data from something like Gym Aware, and it's exciting, and still I get sucked into it, mate. Don't get me wrong, but I've really got to prise myself away from it all the time, mate.
There's luxury for some guys like yourself.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I'm in a position now where I can spend a wee bit more time, but equally, I know when I'm spending too much time on it. So it's that fine balance between things all the time.
Yeah, totally. I mean, just I got onto the little question about Eric Cressy and your kind of meeting with him in Slovenia.
Yeah.
Just tell us about how that came about and kind of what lessons you've learned from spending that bit of time with him that you did.
Yeah. I've been following Eric Cressy for a good number of years now, and when I heard he was up in Slovenia, I thought it was an ideal opportunity to go and train with him. So I went over there with about 4 or 5 other coaches, and we did a day of CPD ourselves across there. And they've got a fantastic gym called Vigor Gym, which is probably one of the best facilities that I've been to, outside of my own, of course.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
What did I learn from Eric? The biggest takeaway is from a shoulder perspective is you've got to look at more than just the glenohumeral sort of scapulothoracic joint, because most people just get sucked into it and thinking, oh, it must be something around there. There's so many things around it that you have to look at. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of the soft tissue restrictions, for example, like elsewhere in the body, lats that are too tight. Do you know what I mean? Looking at the thoracic, even come down to breathing patterns. There were so many little facets that was just. It was quite good to see it in person, because sometimes you can learn from a YouTube video if you've got a good amount of education in the subject. I believe you can learn from reading books, but it's the little things when you're there in person and then even chatting with them about. He looked at my shoulders, because I've smashed mine up quite a few times, so it was great from a personal perspective to get that. So that was one in terms of sort of looking at the whole body rather than just the shoulder. A lot of the times people are upper trap dominant, and they don't work on lower traps enough, and that was one of my biggest problems. So there was some great exercises to do that, and I'm doing it a lot with my rugby guys at the moment, because especially my props. They seem to be, they're going to be way overactive, so a lot of the lower trap stuff has actually helped them. And when you get it done right, the immediate feedback it can be felt when you actually position the shoulder properly. So that was well worth it in itself. The other one that he said to me, which is stuck in my head, is a thing called get long, get strong, and then train hard. So sort of like get long is where you just improve the actual length of the muscles and the tissue quality, and then from there, obviously make that strong, and then the last one is train hard, because it's not all about sort of like pushing around the bands in rehab and things like that. You want to still be sort of smashing it up as well, mate. And then I think the only other thing that I thought was interesting from Eric was he did some stuff from the Postural Restoration Institute, which is breathing patterns and movement around the hips, which I've booked onto the course next year, because some of the things that he was doing I didn't understand. So it just made me add like a list of like 20 things that I wanted to cover sort of like post-course, and that was one of the fallout things from that. So it was pretty good from that perspective as well.
So just on the back of that,
Yeah.
personal question, very selfish question. You're thinking about doing some sort of more, developing your education, or you pick a course that you really want to do. You spend either a couple of £100 on it, or obviously a little bit more if you're kind of going for it. Yeah. Or do you go out to one of these guys who have done it, been there and done it, and spend a couple of days with them if they'll have you, but for the same cost? What do you do?
Oh, it's easy, mate. You go and spend time with the guy themselves.
Cool.
And I tell you what, even if it costs more, you go there and get it done. I mean, I've done interns with just other like coaches, and they're invaluable. I think I tell you what people get stuck in, Rob, is like they get stuck in. Oh, I've got to be seen with this person. I've got to be seen with that. But most people, I mean, for example, like your average client doesn't know who Eric Cressy is. To be honest, they're like, well, who the fuck is he? Just give me the results. So, like for that perspective, you have to go with a person who is genuinely getting awesome results. So if you've got like a lot of shoulder issues, then I would be going to work with guys like Eric Cressy and bringing that back into it. If it's like you want to be seen with Eric Cressy, then for other trainers to sort of, it's almost like that peacock effect of, oh, look who I've been training with, then you're going to be all right. But after a while, you're going to die in your ass, because you're not going to be like educating yourself for your clients. You're educating you need to make sure you're educating yourself for your clients first, and then you second. And that, well, they're the only two ways. Because if you don't, and it's this, oh, look who I've been with, you've done it for the whole wrong reasons. I suppose it goes back to, like, say, like the accreditation stuff like that. If you're going for an accreditation so that you can put 4 letters after your name, so everybody can look at you and think, oh my God, he's accredited, or he's a CSCS. You know what I mean? It's like, well, you've got to really question what you're in it for. I mean, I genuinely, I mean, that's why now I don't mind not having those letters after my name, because I know I genuinely get results. I know I'm a really good strength coach. I've got a really good facility now. I provide education, and with that, I get results. So they speak more than the people who I've been training with, or the letters after my name and stuff like that as well, mate. So, sorry, I know I get long-winded, but
no, that's cool. I mean, but like you say, it's having the balls and the confidence to say, no, it's not worth £90 a year or whatever it is. I can spend that money elsewhere better.
Yeah, mate. At the end of the day, right, Rob, if you're in professional sport and it's a prerequisite, then you've got to get it done. If you look at it now, though, it's like, if you've got to have, this is what I say, like, guys ask me all the time, oh, how can I become like an S&C and work in professional sport? And I'm like, if you haven't got that, then forget about it. Simple as that, mate. You can have the best experience in the world, but if you've got like 300 or 400 CVs coming through and you haven't got ASC accreditation, a degree, a master's, and God, you probably need a PhD now, don't you? The way you go, yeah, it's turned into a bit of a joke, but it's you just got to be careful of chasing the wrong stuff, and I think my advice, if you're a young S&C, make sure you are unbelievably awesome at getting results. Simple as that. If you concentrate on that, your first, second, third, fourth client thereafter, if you're getting awesome results, then those people will be, you know, they will sing your praises to the right people. That's what you want to do, mate.
I mean, I finished off a little selfish question there, but chuck that in at the end.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're the questions, mate, that are going to help people as well, mate.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean,
sometimes we can get sucked into the sexiness of it all, mate, and when you've got to stand back and go, right, what brings in money? Results, mate. And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned in terms of, like, from a business perspective. When I first started out, like, it was, I need to get like that course, because all the guys at the top end have got that. I need to have those. But then slowly but surely, when you actually working with clients, and then you ask them, well, have you heard of this? Have you heard of that? And they're like, no, they're just interested in getting results. And that's what you have to, is what you have to build your gym around as well. You have to build it around how it can serve clients and not serve yourself. A lot of it, I mean, again, it's a mistake that I made when I opened up the lab. Is I built the lab, it was almost like an extended version of my garage. But then when I come to start training clients, it was a bit like, oh, I need this, I need that, and I don't really need that. So you've really, it's the little things like that you've got to look at as well.
I mean, just to round up a little bit, what seminars and workshops have you got coming up, and where can people keep up to date with what kind of things that you got going on?
So seminars that I've got coming up, mate, is well, it might be useless by the time when you put this out. I'm training the RAF next week. They're doing my bodyweight certification, nice, which I'm looking forward to. So going back as an ex-army man, that'll be interesting. The only other one I got is November the 1st and 2nd is my bodyweight certification. That's the last one of this year. Then November the 23rd, is the core workshop, which is down the lab. That's the one you're coming down to, mate.
Yeah, true.
And I think I've only got about 3 spaces left for that. I'm not one of these like fill up with 25 people. I normally cap them around about 10, because I genuinely want people to, one, spend a bit of time with me, making sure that they can move better, and I like sort of passing on some coaching experience to them as well. And then equally, it makes the networking a lot easier as well, because I think you can get to know somebody pretty well to a certain point, rather than having a big massive group of people where you're forgetting names and stuff like that. So that's what they're the only two I've got left for this year. And then the only thing I've got is on December the 7th. Like all the coaches that have done my certifications and workshops and the little one day things, that I've got like a training lab hub, which is a private group on Facebook. So and literally everything I do, I continually update on there. So if I learn something new from a core perspective, I put it up there. If I've got a new protocol, I put it up there. And what I'm doing is we're having a get together on the 7th. We're down at the lab. And I've asked some guys to deliver some education. I'm going to deliver some stuff as well, and we're going to have some food and chill out. But so that's going to be my last thing. And then I've got a busy 2015 already.
That sounds like a nice little touch, the Facebook group. Very personal.
Yeah, it is, mate. It's like, so for me, mate, it's twofold. It's free. It's a chance for all the coaches to go back and forth, and the other, like, people can then look at the bodyweight certification before they get onto it. So and then they can ask questions, and it's a real nice hub of information. And there's no egos on there. There's nobody thinks they're bigger than everybody else. And it's I try and push the guys and girls who are on there as best as I can. Do you know what I mean? Give them little challenges. I mean, we've got like our anatomy books, and we can, do you know what I mean? It's like a constant CPD, but it's away from all the hustle and bustle and all the crap that's normally on Facebook. So I thought, do you know what I mean? Give back to people as well a wee bit. So we're going to have that get together, and then just chill. Do you know, sometimes you learn better when you're in a relaxed environment, and that's what I've tried to create on my workshops. Same as on the hub, and then we're going to do like 1 or 2 days a year where we just have a get together, and people have an opportunity to sort of like teach me and things like that as well, because I want to learn from everyone that I speak to, man.
Yeah, that's cool. So where can people keep up to date? Facebook, Twitter, email, website?
Don't email me, mate. I get too many at the minute.
No emails then. No,
I've got too much spam, mate. I've got spam on handbags, Viagra, and God, what's the other one? In the secret. And I'm thinking, shit, what do I actually look at online? Just make it out of what you wish, mate. So, mate, really, really simple. IronMacFitness.com is my main website, and that's where I run my online business and online program. I've got irondisciple.co.uk, which is clothing. I've only got medium and large t-shirts, so medium and small t-shirts left. So check me out, being the fucking salesman. And then everything else is literally Iron Mac Fitness. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube is all the same. And I try and I work hard to really get back to people and stuff like that. So they can hit me up there, mate.
Nice. Well, yeah, little roundup. So that's us done. But thank you very much for your time. It's been absolutely quality 40 minutes. So yeah, thanks again, and I'll speak to you shortly.
Yep, no worries, Rob. Thanks very much for having me, mate. And right. And I look forward to you being that movement clusterfuck on the Cool Workshop, mate.
Absolute abuse.
Cheers, mate.
Okay, mate. Thanks a lot. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Pacey Performance Podcast. I'm sure you'll agree that was a really insightful chat with Andy McKenzie. If you do want to keep in touch with everything that's going on in the podcast, you can follow me on Twitter at PaceyPerform. You can also listen online at paceyperformance.co.uk, and all the previous episodes are on there. And I've just discovered that if you don't have iTunes, so you've got Android but you want to listen on the go, you can download the Podomatic app, which is Podomatic. Download the app, search for the Pacey Performance Podcast, and you can listen on the go if you're not an iTunes listener. Thanks for tuning in again, and I will see you soon.